Good morning. Hello, everybody. We're going to do something a little different today. A lot of the times I'm taking you through a specific retouching technique or how I go through the process of retouching an entire image. Today I'm going to walk you through the process of the site and the photography of a specific project. So I'm going to walk you through all 17 images that I delivered for this set of photographs. It's a residential project that my friend Tom Lee did. A beautiful project. If you go back to my long form retouching videos, episode number 1, the residential interior, a kitchen, we retouched a project or image from this project. So I'm going to take you through just the process today, and I hope you'll understand sort of how I sequence my images. I'm going to go through lighting for them. I'm just going to kind of walk you through each image and why we made it, and maybe we'll talk about some of the images we didn't make, things like that. So I think stick around, you might learn something. Here's the site. It's in Chicago. In the 1880s, there was the Chicago fire. Downtown Chicago burned to the ground, and as a result, we got this beautiful it's called the Burnham Plan. If you're not familiar, Daniel Burnham designed a plan for Chicago. There's a few diagonal spokes that go out from downtown, but primarily everything's on a north-south grid. So as a result, we get this gorgeous, very uniform grid that the entire city is on. So almost all buildings face either north, south, east, or west, pretty much on the axis. So I'm not going to share the details of exactly where this is, but it's in the neighborhoods in Chicago. I highlighted it yellow here for you so you can see, what we're working with. The front of the house faces west. The back of the house faces east. We shot this in the summertime, so we had very long days. The sun rises a few degrees north of the axis, so we had, sun coming in here. The sun sets a few degrees north of the west, north of west here. So we had, pretty much a full sundial day here to work with. So I'll take you through, some of the problems with the site. We had a Norway maple here. We had a black walnut tree here. We had some ash trees back here, which kind of obstructed our longer views of the house. Plus, you can see it's very hemmed in on the sides. A Chicago lot is typically 25 feet wide by 125 feet deep. So oftentimes the buildings are nearly touching each other on the side, or there's a gangway on each side for each house. So a house will be kind of left or right justified on a lot with a little gangway that you can walk between the houses on. So let me take you through here the first image we made, or the first image in the sequence, right? So I deliver images that are sequenced in a way that makes sense, generally starting with the overall exterior of the front of the building, the hero shot. Sometimes it's a little more contextual, but oftentimes it's sort of the elevation or oblique shot of the front of the building. So in this case, right, it's the front view at dusk. We've got the door open. It's very inviting. We've got light spilling out through the slats next to the stairs. You can see it's casting these shadows. We made this at dusk. It was pretty late. It's probably 9 o'clock dusk shot. So really a beautiful moment here going on. I didn't have to light this one, actually. Oftentimes at dusk you don't need to light the shot because we've got all the lights on in the house. You can see we cleaned up everything that we could see in the house that was bothersome. There was like a chair back here. There was like a exercise bike or something here, I think. We cleaned up the table. We cleaned up the kitchen, everything, just made sure everything was just perfect. So we even left a little keep off the grass sign in for the dogs here, which I think is a great little tongue-in-cheek thing. So so this is the shot. The camera's looking directly east at dusk. So you may have caught me say this before, but when you're working with brick buildings, it's very important when you're doing a dusk shot or a dawn shot to be looking in the opposite direction that the sun is either rising or setting, right? So if you're shooting a brick building at dusk, you should be looking east. If you're shooting a brick building at dawn, you should be looking west. And that is because brick is stone. It tends to eat light, right? It doesn't reflect a lot of light, even if they're slightly glazed. But at dusk, you get this sort of slightly, this soft light really gives your bricks texture so that you can capture it when the exterior light and the interior light are balanced, rather than letting it just totally just eat light and turn black, you're gonna have problems. So if you've ever run into that before, you probably learned the lesson that you need to be looking opposite where the sky is brightest, because when the sky is darker behind the building, the windows are going to match it more quickly. So that's a really good tip for you. So next, we have a similar view shot during the daytime. We waited for some, a person walking with dogs here. We shot this at probably, let's see, we're west, so we're looking east. The face we're looking at is west. I'm guessing we shot this at 10 minutes after 1, maybe 1:15. We wanted to wait long enough where there's a bit of an overhang here for the roof, right? So at 12:45, when the sun crosses from east to west part of the sky at this time of year, we would have had slightly more raking light on the brick, but we needed to wait for this shadow to climb, to get off the building a little bit. So we still have really beautiful long shadows here because the light is just barely raking. It's the right time of day to shoot it. You can see even here how much texture we have in the brick on the more textured brick of the building next door. So we were set up and ready, and this photograph didn't even have light on it. We got ready, and then we waited until it just started raking, and then we waited until it was raking for long enough, got the shot, and moved on. So that was a midday shot. Proof that sometimes high noon is the right time to shoot something. If it's east facing or west facing, you're going to want to be, if it's east facing, you're going to want to be a half hour before or 15 minutes before the light crosses the axis. West facing, the opposite, 15 to half an hour after. An oblique view looking to the southeast. Similarly, this was shot at a very similar time. A little bit later, you can see this shadow has creeped past this window now, versus here it was still, across the window at an angle here. So this is probably 15 minutes later. Still very nice light. The sun has come around just a little bit further, so this window is now free of the shadow, which is much more important in this oblique view. Successful. We waited again for some people who were walking to lunch. We happened to actually know these people. Funny coincidence that they happened to be walking by, and then they ended up being the perfect people to be in the shot. This just happened to be them walking by, but a very talented graphic designer and Chicago designer just happened to be walking by there. So small world here in Chicago. All right, now we go to the back of the building where Tom did some more intervention, right? So there's a addition on the back with this standing seam metal. We shot this at kind of mid-morning. The standing seam metal casts some these seams are pretty deep here, right? You can see they come off a few inches, or at least a couple inches. So if we waited to shoot this until 11:30 or noon, we would have had, half of these panels would be in shadow. So we wanted to wait late enough in the morning where there was no longer a glare angle to the sun on this metal, but enough where we got the glow and enough shadow from the standing seam. So this was, mid-late morning, maybe 10 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock, somewhere in there. So let me just get this a little larger and off my body there. So what we did is we cleaned up a lot for this shot. We had to move big planters. We had to move some more Adirondack chairs. We couldn't move this fireplace. It was it's a gas fireplace, so it was hard lined into the deck. So we left that there. We moved the Adirondack chair off the opening, and we moved some furniture around in here. I have two lights in here. I have a umbrella coming out of the it might have been a bounce, might have been an umbrella. I probably should have kept it a little more off the ceiling, but anyhow, there's a little alcove here where you can actually come in the back door. So I stuck an umbrella there, cross-lighting the island in the back, and I have another umbrella shooting forward here so that I can get some nice edge on the wood of the Eames lounge here. So there's two strobes in there. I probably could have set a third strobe. You know what? I think this was actually a bounce to the right, not an umbrella, because I can see I'm getting some light on the underside of the stair risers, the back side of the stair risers, which is nice. It's not all in shadow. It separates it from the door and the slats behind it. So we might have, it might have been wise for us to stick a third light back in here there's a pantry back in here, but I think, you get the picture. You can really see inside here. It's not just a black hole, which it was if we had not used any lighting. So the lighting was effective there. Happy that we did it. So on to the next shot here. So this is from up on the roof deck. Tom was interested in showing the sort of juxtaposition, the contrast that the standing seam metal made with the more traditional Chicago rear faces of the houses that flanked it. So this is really just a shot about contrast, right? Tom wanted to be able to tell the story of the how it stood out from the other houses in the back and blended in the front. So we were standing on the roof deck here. We shot this at a similar time of day. I still have my 2 lights going down here. We opened the door. We also did a second version where we closed the door just so Tom could kind of show that he's made this like accordion style door that folds away, and you can you can open the living and kitchen space up to the exterior of the house on a beautiful spring day like we have going here in Chicago today. Onward. Dusk view of the back side of the house. The standing seam metal, now you can really see the depth of these seams, of these ribs, and you get a very beautiful sense of materiality here. So you really are understanding, that the metal is not hyper matte. It's a little bit of has a little bit of sheen to it, right? So you're getting the glow of the evening twilight, where it's reflected, and less so where it's hidden by a house. So a good way to talk about materiality here. Also a nice, warm glow on the inside. We didn't light this one again because we had that nice balance between the two. We shot this one before we shot the front dust shot for 2 reasons. First reason was that in the back here there's a lot more houses and things to block the sky, so it's going to get a little darker faster back here. But the second thing is that shot 001 that I showed you first of the exterior, the hero shot, is way more important than this shot. So it was far more important for me to get there, get it ready, and get it set up than to to wait longer on this view. So just a kind of a back deck design shot Tom wanted to get. Shows the approach to the roof deck above the garage. It also shows the Chicago common brick that was salvaged it's salvaged Chicago common brick that was used to clad the garage with and make this wall. So this is sort of the standard brick that houses in Chicago are made from, including my house here. My house is made of this Chicago common brick. It's super hard. My house is built in 1895, and it's as good as new still. So it's good stuff. Okay, so now we're moving inside. This is basically the view from the entry, right? We've seen these lights hanging here in the. I'll go ahead and turn off my video capture now because we're going to be on some bigger horizontal interior shots. Here we've got the view from the entry. So literally immediately to my right is the entry door, and immediately behind me is that screen that's that sort of divides the stair from the entry space. So we waited until, so just by looking at this shot, I don't remember when we shot this exactly, but I can tell you exactly because I know the wall we're looking at faces north, right? Because we're facing south. To our right is the west. To our left is to the east. We have west light coming in, and you can see we've got this very pretty long shadows on the south wall, which is facing north, which means the light has to be in the north part of the sky, which means this shot was probably shot at between 5:50 p.m. and 6:15 p.m. right? It's very raking. The light is it's far enough in where it's penetrating past the window frames and things like that. You can see it isn't perfectly parallel with the bottom of the frame. It's coming in at a slight angle, but it's low enough that it's really getting deep into the room. So an excellent time of day. This is the kind of thing you want to really understand where you live, where you're shooting, what the sun's going to be doing, so that when you and the architect walk through in the morning, you can make a plan and say, I could tell Tom, in advance that we need to be set up on this shot at 6 p.m. and we'll wait a few minutes and get the right light. But that way you're not setting it up at 4:30 and saying, the light's going to be good at 5, or getting here at 6:30 and realizing you're too late. So super important to know your geography and your sun. a detail view looking through those lights. Tom really liked those lights and wanted to just have sort of a detail so we could show the materiality there. All right, so now we're in the kitchen looking back to the entry. So we're out of that first room and we've moved into the second room. So this is sort of a combination vignette shot, detail shot that talks about materials, but it also talks about like the layout of the house. Very happy with this view. The camera is basically hovering over the island underneath a lamp, an island in the kitchen. There's a stair going down here, a stair going up here. He also wanted to show this detail, this sort of just joinery detail here, which was very nice. Here's the shot I retouched in my episode 1 of my long form retouching videos. You should go back and watch that if you're interested. It's been a very popular video. Lots of good feedback from it, but yeah, just a very nice shot. So again, each shot progressively kind of pulls back a little further into the house from that entry sequence. A little indicator. This is almost a wayfinding device, right? Could we have hidden these chairs? Sure. But showing them tells you both just in this shot all by itself, there's a table back here, but if we look at this in context in the shots, right? Like Tom can show these shots side by side and the viewer can immediately understand, okay, now I know exactly where the dining space is and how you've laid out the house because I see these little visual cues, right, to lead us back and forth. So a very nice dining room shot. We agonized over this. This is one of the most important, kitchen shots. One of the most important interiors that we did. A vignette of the kitchen, always nice to have both horizontal and vertical shots for an architect for their layout purposes. Sometimes they're going to have double pages that they need to fill. Sometimes they're going to have a single page and they're going to want to put text over the top. We've left room for that. Important things to think about when you're composing photographs within the set. It's really important to always make the best photo you can, but it's also important to think about them in the context of the set. Do we have any verticals? Do we have any horizontals? Let's find a really strong composition that's a horizontal or a vertical or a heavily right weighted image like this one, right? Like very heavily weighted to the right where we can put text or overlay another image partly over it or something, as if they're doing a layout for a presentation trying to get a new job. So something to think about, something to think about so that when you deliver a body of images, a job, it can feel super cohesive and it can feel really, really well thought out, and it can be very useful to the end user. Here is now we've turned the camera almost perfectly 90 degrees. It's probably in nearly the same position. Looking back, we shot this in the morning after the light got over the top of this garage. It's coming in. This is about as far as we could get the light to come in because we have tall buildings back here. This is sort of first light into the east-facing living space back here. We have nice light pouring in over the lounge here. Yeah, we made some choices. We put some, shoes in there and so on. So, yeah, not much to say about that shot. Oh, lighting. I should have told you guys I was going to talk about lighting. Let's back up and just start again. I think I put a bounce in this pantry here and I gelled it. And turned it down, maybe 3 or 4 stops, so it was just a little bit of glow. It was feeling a little dark in here. Otherwise, the sun is doing the heavy lifting on this shot. This shot was unlit. This shot, I had possibly a light coming down the stair to get some light into here, or maybe it was a little bit of a backfilled light from the left. There wasn't a lot of lighting to do here. Here I had a strobe on the left coming through here. And I had a light down here bounced because this was just a black hole basically down here, gelled to match the rest of the light in the space. Here I had a soft umbrella spilling across from the left in that alcove. You can kind of tell by the shape here, there's a little bit of a shadow from it right there. Nice soft light on here with good contrast in my grooves that brought shadow. Here I had a bounce into the left wall and corner just to give everything some shape. It was very high contrast with the light coming in from outside. Okay, so now we've gone up the stairs. We're on the second floor now. This little moment here with the art and the chair and the book and the turned walnut Miller Knoll piece there, looking out the window. This was shot also in the evening, probably a little closer to 5 p.m. when the light is kind of coming straight in, 5:15 maybe. This shot was probably made directly before shot number 8 here. Yeah, we agonized a lot. We moved a bunch of stuff out of here and moved this in. We essentially invented this shot. You know, this was obviously hung on the wall, but otherwise not a lot was done there. So now we're up on the third floor. Here we're looking back down the stair on the third floor. We've got light coming in the skylight. We waited to do this until almost exactly 12:30, whenever the light was the very highest in the sky. So we probably did this sandwiched between this. We probably did this shot first, then we ran up to 3 to do this shot because the light was coming straight down this skylight. You can see I mean, look how parallel this line is to this line. It is exactly at the apex at solar noon, right? Which is usually afternoon in our particular part of the time zone, right? Depending on what side of the time zone you're at, it's gonna shift from closer to noon to closer to 1. And since we're on the very eastern edge of the time zone, our solar noon is closer to 12:45. So it's something to keep in mind. So yeah, we were outside in the back, then we were inside on 3 at high noon, and then we went straight out here to knock that shot out. So just to give you some idea of the ordering of the afternoon. This was shot in the evening. This was sort of a non-light dependent shot. This is almost entirely lit by my own lights. You can see we have no light coming through the drapery here. I put a bounce or an umbrella into the ceiling on the left up here, and we just sort of did some staging and things in the bedroom. So that was actually our bedroom shot. Tom wasn't super interested in capturing the bedrooms because he didn't specify the furniture, and we didn't necessarily need to show off the design in those bedrooms. And then this is in the powder room downstairs. This shot took a lot longer than you might think. This is the last shot of the photo shoot. The last shot of the whole set of images. We shot this in the mid-afternoon kind of dead light time, right? After we had that really nice light on the raking light on the front of the building, we had, essentially from 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock, there was no real lighting needs on the exterior or interior. So we were able to do like that bedroom shot with the chair and the throw blanket and this powder room shot because they weren't light dependent at all. There's no windows in here. So this is a very small powder room. You can imagine directly next to the toilet here that another wall sticks out, right? So behind the door, I had a very skinny stand with a strobe with a bunch of gels on it, maybe 4 CTO, quarter CTO, Lee 206 warming gels that were punched into the ceiling. I shot it. We needed to get the reflectance of the gold in the wallpaper here. It was super important, right? It's very hard to understand that here, like if it's not a direct glare angle. So I was able to punch a light up high and get that glare angle, and then I actually had too big of a glare angle, so I had to move my light, shoot again, and then blend in the rest of the light. So this is actually 2 different exposures in the powder room that are blended together to make one sort of seamless one that includes the nice glare angle on here. We moved some flowers in. I let some petals fall here, just styling stuff that you get to be playful with if you do this long enough. You don't have to be super stiff with your styling. You can just make it your own and let it be fun. We lit these candles, let them burn down just a little ways. It's a nice way to show a powder room without, we see the toilet here, but it's not the whole main part of the picture. Less is more, in my opinion, when it comes to a powder room. You want to be able to express the feeling of being in the powder room without seeing everything that you don't really want to see. So that was the last shot of the shoot. So you can see shots we made in the back were made between, you know, when the light was coming in at, let's just say, you know, switch that. Okay. So, you know, at sunrise, we probably had light coming in at that angle. We started to do some of those shots on the interior of the back doors at maybe, you know, 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. We did the raking light shots back here at 11:30 to noon. Then we had light coming straight down in at 12:30, right? That's when we did that shot. Then we ran out front. We did the shot from here and the shot from here at you know, right after, you know, maybe 1 o'clock, 1:15, and then we waited. You know, we had sunlight coming in at this angle for the shot on the first, you know, at the shot number 8 here, right? We had sun coming in at that really low angle for the shot of the dining room, and then, you know, the sun set up here opposite of our morning view. And that's when we started to get ready on the back dust shot from here, and then the front elevational dust shot there. So that's sort of the full day, you know, sunrise to sunset in this home. Really lovely way to spend a day. Let's just tab through the set one more time. Front elevation at day. So we have the day and dusk one, nice to display next to each other. You know, they're slightly different crops because we had people, but Tom could go ahead and, you know, crop if he wanted to. The oblique view here, you can see that Norway maple above me, and you can see, you know, I'm quite penned in here. Plus there was cars parked here. I was literally backed in. My tripod was nearly touching a car. I had the, you know, one of my feet of my tripod was in the street next to their wheel. It was back as far as I could go. The elevation of the back, another elevation of the back, doors open, doors closed. We had the dusk view. This shot's mostly about materiality, right? An important thing to show. We can understand the difference in material between that shot and that shot. Excuse me, that shot and that shot. Deck and reclaimed Chicago Common. Brick, beautiful millwork, lots of walnut, white oak floors, and you know, just gorgeous, just beautiful moment. I did struggle a lot with this relationship here, if we're being honest. I really wanted to get lower, but for me to get low enough to really rid this relationship, this the back of this chair came all the way up and blocked my whole table. There would be ways of handling that. If I had a ladder and an assistant, I probably could have had them, you know, hop up on a ladder and pull this straight up, just make a loop in it basically, and then we could have hung it here and you know, just blended the wire exposures together and grabbed it here. But it's not. Sometimes it is what it is, right? Detail of that lamp. Very nice detail here. White oak going up the stair. You know, I talk a lot about wood and stone and materials. It helps you guys to learn, you know. Usually when I walk into a space, I can see if ash was used, or white oak, or red oak, or walnut, or maple, or, you know, it helps to be educated when you can speak to a designer and, you know, recognize their work. This is the work they've spent many hours and days and nights agonizing over, and, you know, getting buy-in from homeowners and from building, you know, contractors and things, to see their vision through. And if you can learn a little bit about it and speak with them about it, and, you know, we all have preferences, but it's fun to be able to speak their language, guys. It's important. I also like to learn about the trees on the exterior, right? Because, for instance, I know this is a Norway maple, and I know that this is one of the first trees to bud out in the spring. You know, as whereas in Chicago we have honey locusts, which are some of the last. So when I'm scouting a project with an architect, I can tell them, you know, here we have a Norway maple, and here we have a silver maple, and here we have an ash tree, and here we have a honey locust, and I can tell them, you know, this Norway maple is going to be ready to go. It's going to be beautiful spring green 3 weeks before the honey locust is. It's You'd be amazed at how big of a difference it is. And by the same token, the honey locust is going to turn yellow September 10th. The first leaves are going to start to turn yellow in Chicago on the honey locust trees, and by October 1st, those trees are going to be bare, whereas the maples and oaks aren't going to have even started changing yet or well, maybe they'll have started, but they won't peak until maybe the third week in October in Chicago. So, you know, you can have green trees, or, you know, green trees with some yellow leaves right next to completely bare trees. So if you don't time your shoot right, depending on which trees are in front of your building, you're going to get yourself in trouble. So it might sound like a nerdy thing to do, but it helps a lot, actually. I can't really remember where we were here. Right, white oak, walnut. This was a fun shoot. I enjoy looking back at these because it's fun to just to run back through it. You know, I think we did a pretty decent job of balancing the tone of this. This shot overall seems a little cooler, but I think it's just because of the lack of wood that we have in this shot, right? Like if we look at just this sort of color palette we have here versus this one, versus this one, they look very similar, but in an overall shot, we have, you know, 2/3 of this is wood. So yeah, and then we had a couple more details and vignettes, and then we went on into our bathroom. So that's it. A little bit of a different video, not showing you how to retouch, but showing you how to you know, make a full set of images that talk about a building, and how to scout it, how to think about it, and what to use for a plan of attack for the day. So my children are getting home from school. I can hear them shouting, so I'm gonna let you go now, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.